Good afternoon. It is my delight and my pleasure that on Sunday afternoon, it's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. It is August 28th and the year is 2022. And I want to introduce you to my dear friend and sister and colleague and HU grad, and a woman that I love, not just because we go way to the way back, but we had our babies together. It was my second child, Amber Joy, and she's my daughter, and she had Willisha, and we were neck and neck pregnant every hot ass minute together. We always used to say, why are we pregnant in the heat of the summer in DC? But we had our babies together. And we are celebrating Black Breastfeeding Week. And we are discussing our experience as elders and having nursed our babies. And with that, I would like to introduce you, and you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and what was it like having Militia and Romay, but what it was like having your babies and nursing them.
Well, my name is Joyce, maiden name Willis, last name Davidson. And the beauty of one of the beauties of Jackie and I, our relationship and our friendship of all these many years, is not only that we had our daughters around the same time. I had a little attitude with Jackie when Amber was born. Amber was born in September,
September
and
4th.
my daughter was not due until October. Well, I didn't know that she was further along than I. I thought we were going to have our babies at the same time. And when she advised me that her baby was born, I was happy. But then at the same time, I was like, already? My baby is not due until October. However, the beauty is our babies, our girls, have literally one of the longest friendships that you ever can imagine. They were friends in the crib. They were playing together in the crib when they were like months old, and until this day,
Yeah.
2022, Alicia will be what, 42? Amber's already 42, or Amber will be
September 4th. She'll be 42.
September 4th. Amber will be 42. Alicia will be 42 in October. And they are still very, very good friends. They talk to each other. They see each other. They're there for each other for 41 years, almost 42, since they were babies. How many friends do you have? I mean, I can go back to kindergarten, someone that I've known who's still alive today, who I still talk to on occasion today, that I was friends with in kindergarten. But how many people can go back to the crib? So here we are, 41 plus years. Amber and Walisha are friends. They've been friends since birth. And Jackie and I have been friends since before we were both pregnant, I think, or maybe we were pregnant and we didn't know it, but
No,
we
before that.
have been friends since before that time. And I think that that is such a beautiful thing. And since we're on the topic of breastfeeding, Jackie is the person who I knew that I was going to breastfeed, but I did not know that I was going to have the challenges that I had. And Jackie was instrumental in helping me to perform that function and to get through that function pretty seamlessly. So it's been amazing, and it is truly, truly my pleasure to talk about the experience.
Wow, I'd forgotten that. Well, Amber was born in 1980. So that would make Alicia be born in 1980. But you
Right.
and, yeah, you and I knew each other in grad school. We both went to Howard University. And can maybe you could go back a little bit about well, we found out about being pregnant about the same time. But if you could just talk a little bit more about the pregnancy and who you knew, and did you ever know anybody who had breastfed, or what your mom
Well,
thought about it, any of that?
I thought everybody breastfed. Um, it was just something that I knew that I was going to do, and I thought that it was a common process or a common occurrence. I
You
did
breastfed?
when no, I was not. My mother did say, because I asked her about it, she said that she tried and she breastfed me for a few weeks, but that was it. So I didn't really consult with my mother. I told my mother that I was going to, and she thought that was, cool and neat and wonderful and all of that. But she wasn't the person for me to confide in or talk to about breastfeeding. And I just really, really thought that everybody breastfed until I was breastfeeding. And I realized that A, people kind of looked at you strangely. B, you really couldn't talk to anybody about that because nobody really did it. And people had such negative things to say about breastfeeding. And so I felt really weird and uncomfortable and even emotional based on the things that people would say to me. So I remember telling you about the fact that I was going to be breastfeeding, and you said, "Oh, wonderful." And you told me about breastfeeding Amber. And I thought, oh, great. So you were my go-to person. But then as I was getting these different kind of attitudes and comments from people, you're the person who said, you need to talk to the La Leche League, which is an organization for breastfeeding mothers. Well, not only did I figure everybody breastfed, but I didn't realize how uncommon it was in the Black community. So when you told me about the La Leche League, and I lived in Alexandria, Virginia at the time, and I think you were in Washington, D.C., so I had to look up a group in my community. So when I called and got the information and I attended a meeting, I was the only Black person there. And I thought, okay, well, I don't know why I just thought it was going to be a group of Black women, I guess because I was Black, but I certainly didn't expect to be the only Black person there. But the women were very warm, they were very welcoming. I listened for a while, and the things that they were discussing and bringing up were some of the exact same experiences that I was having. So I felt like this was truly a place for me. And you and I kind of compared notes. You talked about your La Leche League experience, and I talked about my La Leche League experience. And they really, really helped me in terms of some of the problems that I had. Now, I did not have problems with Willis nursing. She took to it immediately. I did not have any problems in terms of being able to produce milk. All of that was very natural. The problems that I had were mostly stemmed from the attitudes of other people. And so I had Willisha in October, and in December, I was going to California to visit my parents. And just based on comments that I was receiving, I was kind of skeptical and kind of concerned about what lied before me when I got to California. So I got a lot of preparation. For example, people want to hold your baby. Everybody wants to hold your baby. Well, Lisha didn't like people to hold her. She was not a very sociable, you wouldn't know that to know her today. She was not a very sociable infant, and she liked to nurse a lot. So when other people would try to hold her, she would cry. She didn't want to go to other people. And so I would hear comments like, oh, you're holding her too much. You're feeding her too much. You're spoiling her. And one thing I remember one of my childhood friends had a baby. This was like way before Willis was born, some years before she was born. And her daughter wasn't very sociable. And when I would try to, hold her, the baby would cry. And her mother would say, oh, she doesn't go to anybody but her mama. And I thought, that's terrible. Why are you supporting that? So I've always been a very friendly person, I think. So I just knew that I would have this bubbly, friendly, outgoing. You reach for my baby, she reached back for you. So no, she was not that child at all. So I remember thinking of my friend Wanda and saying, she only goes to her mama. And I would think, oh, I will never have a child like that. My child is not going to be like that. So when Willis was like that, I was like, oh my goodness. But I learned that it wasn't that she only went to her mother. It was based on she had some people she did gravitate to immediately. So she had this internal sense of who she felt comfortable with, who she wanted to hold her. And if you weren't one of those people, she was not as open. But the other thing is, she did like being close to me, and she nursed a lot. She felt the warmth. And I learned from the La Leche League that that's okay. Because naturally, I did think, am I holding her too much? Am I feeding her too much? Oh, that was the main thing. You're feeding her too much. But what I learned from La Leche was they'll eat a little bit and then they might eat a little more, but they don't eat a lot at one time. So as a consequence, they eat for longer periods of time. Mm-hmm. So as I stated, I learned from them and it prepared me. So when I got to California with my parents, and who my mom was very supportive, and she didn't press the issue. She wasn't like, you come to me, I'm your grandmother. If Willisha didn't come to her, she was okay. But when I went around our friends, who everybody wanted to hold her, and she didn't want to go to anyone, and when they would say things to me like, you're holding her too much, she's eating too much, and especially some elderly people too, because I learned that people my mom's age didn't necessarily nurse their children. And see, what people want to do, they not only want to hold your baby, they want to feed your baby. Mm-hmm. So you are depriving them of something that they wanted to do, and they would latch out with comments that were kind of hurtful. So that was my early experience. And I can't stress enough, thank you. If I never have thanked you in the past, I'm sure I thanked you at the time 1,000,000 times. We went through this together. We talked about it together. We shared conversations with our La Leche League friends. I look so forward every month going to my La Leche League meetings, because the other thing was I was very lonely. Everybody else was working. So I had nobody to talk to. My husband, he worked 2 jobs at the time. And when he would get home in the evening, I would all but attack him for some adult conversation. When you would call people, they would say, oh, can I call you back? Or they wouldn't answer the phone because they were busy. So you kind of stopped calling people, stopped talking to people. So I was very long. So La Leche League doctor's appointments, man, that was a major event for me. And then plus I was in Washington, D.C., and I didn't have family there. So they were a lifesaver, and you were a lifesaver. And I'm just so thankful for you and the fact that you were so knowledgeable and instrumental at the time, which now that I think back, you only had a couple of months on me. You had only been nursing a couple of months, but I felt like you were an authority.
Well,
It
Amber was my second. And
okay.
even though maybe you didn't see my older child a lot, they're almost 6 years apart to the day. So that's why, in some ways, it felt like I was a first-time mom again. And I want you to talk a little bit about how you happened to come to DC and be in Virginia, because I think that when you have a new husband, a new baby, a new life, you know, that all plays a part. And Joyce and I also shared that both of our husbands had the same name. Excuse me, one second.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, I'm sorry.
Not a problem. One thing we don't have in common is the love of dogs. I'm not a dog person. Jackie loves dogs. I thought I wanted a dog when I was a teenager. I wanted a dog. I wanted to name him Coco. And I did have a dog. I named her Coco. I had her for about 2 months and she ran away. But during the time that she was with me, she was a wild, jump on you, always wanting to play. And I was like, okay, dogs are not my thing.
Well,
But
I didn't pause, but that is the nature. You know, things happen, and people knock on the door, and we just keep it moving. But I just ask you, if you've lost your train of thought, I was just asking you about if you could talk a little bit more about being a new mom in a new city with a new husband and a new everything, and how, you know.
Well, my husband's name is Jerome Davidson. We've been married for 45 years. And we've been together a little over 50. We both attended the same undergraduate school, which is Kent State University in Kent, Ohio. We met, we dated all through undergraduate school. After I graduated from Kent, I taught school for a couple of years in Cleveland, Ohio. I majored in health and physical education, and I minored in business education. And when I graduated, I stayed in Cleveland for the summer. And my friends encouraged me to apply for a teaching position in Cleveland. My parents lived in California. So I said, well, rather than going all the way to California and not finding a job and perhaps having to come back to Ohio, I'll just go ahead and apply for a job while I'm here. Well, because I was planning to go to California, I got a job offer in Cleveland. I was certified to teach typing, shorthand, health, and physical education. They had a surplus of PE teachers at the time, and I was offered a job teaching typewriting. So,
what's a typewriter?
I taught 2 years at a junior high school, which they tore down, Addison Junior High School in Cleveland, Ohio. And one of my college roommates, I had college roommates that were twins, Cheryl and Carol. Carol's husband, Roosevelt Adams, he was working at Howard at the time. Wow. And he was the director of intramural and recreational activities. So one time we were all together and he learned that I was a phys ed major. And he said, oh, wow, you're a phys ed major. Would you be interested in coming to Howard? You can work for me. I'm the da 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 da. I can assist you in getting a graduate assistantship, so on and so forth. So I said, when I graduated from undergraduate school, I thought that was it for education for me. I was done. But when he made that, gave me that information, I said, well, sure. So long story short, a lot happened in between, but I did apply to Howard. I applied for the graduate assistantship. I got it. Then I was hired to work for him, and I was the assistant director of intramural and recreational activities. And the first year, and I worked in the student of Office of Student Activities. The first year, there were three, I shared an office with two other people, a young man by the name of Kenny and a young lady by the name of Deborah. And the two of them, they assisted other individuals that worked in the Office of Student Activities. And my friend Deborah, she married and got pregnant with her first child. So when she left to have her baby, ironically, around the same time, Roosevelt Adams, he left and he headed up the counseling center. And she went to work for him at the counseling center. And
I never knew that you knew Roosevelt via, wow,
via my college roommate.
wow.
So when she left to have her baby, that left an opening in our office. And who came to work, who fulfilled that office? I mean, that opening, Jackie. So Jackie comes in. Kenny and I had already been there and office mates for a year with Debbie. And now here comes Jackie with her bubbly, happy, friendly, hello, my name is Jackie, and I'm going to be here. I'm going to be working for Andrew Coleman. Is that who you worked for?
Yes.
And that's who Debbie worked for. And you would have thought, I mean, just like it was magical with me, Kenny, and Debbie, with Jackie, it was just as much magic. We just kind of bonded immediately, and we were like, what does Forrest Gump say? He doesn't say cheese and crackers, but peas and I'm terrible when it comes to cliches and stuff. But anyway, so Deborah left because she had a baby, and then Jackie took her place. And so we both worked together in the office for different people. And they were my family. They were, you say maybe I don't remember Jordan. I remember Jordan very well. I don't know if you remember that first year that you were there, Jerome and I, we came over to your house and we bought a Christmas present for Jordan. It was a book. And we came over and we spent a little time because I really missed being around family. I missed being around kids. I didn't have any kids at the time. This was Christmas. I had a need to see some children. That's one thing that Christmas is all about. So my husband and I, we shopped for this present for Jordan. We went over, we gave him his gift. And so I remember Jordan, he was about 2 years old at the time. Did you say they were 6 years apart?
Yeah, he might have been a little older.
He must have been about maybe 4 then. Mm-hmm. Maybe 4 at that time. But at any rate, I remember seeing him in during his toddler period of time. And then I remember we had graduated from Howard when we both were pregnant. And when we graduated, we kind of went different ways, but we were still, Jackie and I were still very close, very much in touch. And I remember also that I loved Washington, D.C. over time, but at the beginning, it wasn't as warm and as inviting as I thought and especially coming from a traditionally majority white college to a historically Black institution, and majoring in student personnel administration, Jackie majoring in guidance and counseling. A lot of our classmates were working adults. They had teaching jobs during the day. Jackie and I worked in student activities later, in the day. Like, I didn't have to report to work until about, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But most of the people that I met, they had teaching jobs during the day. And then we would meet in the evening. Well, after class, people would be off to going home to grade papers. A lot of them had families already. They were married already, had children. So after class, it was like, not a whole lot of time for socialization and getting to meet new friends. So that was the other reason that Jackie, you and I bonded. So because a lot of people that we met, they were friendly, but they didn't have room probably in their lives for any new friends. So I remember being a little bit lonely, and especially when I went through pregnancy. By then I had graduated and I was working, and Jackie was working in one area and I was working in another area. I was working for Boys and Girls Clubs, as a matter of fact, at that particular time. And so here I was in Washington. I had not made a lot of friends based on the nature of what I just explained when I was in school. Most people that you meet them in school and at work. And I met some beautiful, wonderful people, but we didn't have a relationship outside of the classroom or outside of work. Then when I went to work for Boys and Girls Clubs, I had not really established any real close friendships. So after I had my baby, it was kind of a lonely period for me. When I went to Washington to go to grad school, I had absolutely no family in Washington. And as I stated, my husband, while I was pregnant and even after I had the baby, he worked 2 jobs. So it was kind of a lonely period for me. And so nursing and the La Leche League, Jackie, Debbie, that became my family. Mm-hmm. The other thing I want to say, I think that's pretty significant. To this day, my biological alarm clock is different than most people. And so is that of my children. So the first year of Willis's life, I kid you not, she never, ever, ever, not one time slept through the night. So we would nurse, and that was fine before I went back to work. I was home with her for 6 months before I had to return to work. So we would nurse all night, and we would be up playing and nursing and doing whatever we had to do. And then when I had to go back to work, that wasn't such a great idea because now I had to get up and go to work. But she still proceeded to be up all night. And so we would nurse throughout the night. And 3 years later, when I had my son, same thing. His first year of life, never, ever did he sleep through the night. So that was an experience.
Did you think something was wrong with them, or you just said that was normal? They're like me. We don't sleep at night. We are.
Well, I sleep at night when I have to. So yeah, I did think, I would beg. I remember praying, God, please let them sleep tonight. Tonight, let me get one night of sleep. But they never slept. Well, with Romaine though, I did listen to that theory that says, don't let your children sleep with you. If you let your children in your bed, they'll never leave. So with Willisha, I did not let her sleep with us. So I would get up with her and I'd rock her, I'd nurse her. We even would take rides in the car. As soon as we got back, as soon as I put her in her crib, she would wake up. So I did listen to that misnomer, not to let them in your bed. Well, when Romaine came along, I would put that baby in between Jerome and I, put that breast in his mouth, and that's how I would get to sleep. And he, sometime I'd wake up and the breast would be hanging out of his mouth, but that's how I would sleep. But with Willisha, I did not, let her sleep with us. I might let her lay in the bed with us for a while, think she was asleep, get up slowly, ease her into her crib, lay her down, and as soon as she laid down in that crib, wah, wah. And again, I may have thought that was abnormal or that there was a problem or something wrong. I did listen to people that said, don't let her sleep with you. But the La Leche League, they did tell me that that was normal. They even suggested, well, why don't you let her sleep with you? Well, I didn't tell them, well, people say don't let them, I didn't say that. I just would listen, but I didn't follow their advice until my second child came along. And there is no truth to that theory about if you let them sleep with you, they'll never leave. Oh yeah, they'll leave. Now, once they're older and they understand, it's up to the parent to, I think, assure them of their safety and their comfort, and it's okay. I think we can contribute to that, but surely at some point they can be made to understand that your place is in your bed.
How do you think, or do you know how, I know both of us had husbands of few words, but how do you think Jerome felt about his wife being a nursing mom? Did he have any opinion, supportive, not supportive?
He was very supportive. He used to call me the grocery store. And he was just such an awesome dad. I mean, day one, he asked me to show him how to change a diaper. So he was that dad that would hold the baby, change the baby, do everything for the baby. But when that baby started crying, he knew what she wanted, and he would say, okay, go on over to the grocery store. And he would hand off the baby to me, and I would nurse the both of them. And it was so funny that he nicknamed me the grocery store. But yeah, he didn't have any kind of hang-ups, no experience of jealousy. Some men do get jealous that they feel like the child is taking their place. And I've heard that. And those are the kinds of things that we in the Black community, we don't know about the La Leche League. And so we don't get that support because so few of us did breastfeed, or we may know of so few people that breastfed. So we're listening to people that did not have that breastfeeding experience, and they're giving us some wrong information and misinformation. So some women and men are made to think that the baby is second and that the husband should be first, and that perhaps the baby is horning in on some of the male's time or whatever. But thankful to God, I did not experience that at all. Mm-hmm. He was also very supportive and right there for me. I was a little bit, I felt a little alone, and as the young people say, a little bit in my feelings at the time by him working so much. But he had to work to support his family. And when he was home, he did everything, anything that you would need him to do, he was right there. It's just that I had been at home all day by myself with this kid. And eager, and no family. I was having a pity party, no family there. My mom was in California. His parents and family were in Cleveland, Ohio. All of my friends were working and they didn't have time for me. So, you do get a sense of loneliness sometimes, but that quickly ended once I returned to work. But when you're off on maternity leave, you might have those feelings. But then when I went to work, my challenge was, as I stated, how Alicia wasn't this real bubbly, outgoing. And I'm not saying anything that she hasn't heard before. I tease her about this now. She wouldn't go to people. When I went back to work, I went through 6 babysitters before I found the one that she liked.
Wow.
She did not like any of her babysitters. Everybody that she had, she would cry. And it's nothing worse than being at home and knowing that your child is unhappy. And one person gave me the suggestion one time. They said, well, have the sitter call you. If she hears your voice, she'll be okay. Oh, that was the worst advice, because the sitter called me. I heard my baby crying. She did not stop crying. And when I hung up that phone, I cried for the rest of the day. I went and I picked up my baby and I told that lady, thank you so much, but we'll make other arrangements.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done. And when Jerome, he identified a lady that he knew that babysit. And at the time she had one other child that she was caring for, and that child was a toddler. And he talked to her about watching Alicia, and she said yes. And when I talked to her and kind of interviewed her, she said, well, I haven't had a baby cry with me yet. And that Alicia loved Miss Ford. She loved Miss Ford, to the point that, and I don't know who helped me through this, but Miss Ford used to play the numbers. And back in those days, we didn't have lottery and all of that. And I don't know if you remember those people that played the numbers and they would write numbers all the time. So she would have books and books of numbers. And my daughter was 2 years old, and she would call a pencil a number. She would say, Mommy, pass me that number, hand me that number. And she was talking about a pencil. And not only that, but she knew all the characters on all the Black TV shows. Good Times, JJ, she knew all those people. And I said, okay, I think it's time for her to be in a more educational environment where she's going to learn the things that she needs to know to kind of move ahead, her ABCs and 1, 2, 3. So after she turned 2, I put her in a daycare program, and she thrived. But before that, it was a pencil was a number, and she knew all of the characters on all of the TV shows. But prior to Miss Ford, she did not like anyone. But what I was going to say is, I don't know who helped me through this, but it got to the point when I would go and pick her up in the afternoons. I want to think you and I might have talked about this, Jackie. Miss Ford would say things like, oh, you came to get her already? She doesn't want to go with you. And she would say to her, come here, baby. And so Alicia would come to her and she would say, she wants to stay with me. And that would hurt my feelings. And, she wouldn't cry, but she might do something like this when I would say, come on, Alicia, it's time to go. And she might, kind of turn the other way. And my little feelings would get hurt. And I talked to someone and they said, she's going to forget about Miss Ford, but she knows you're her mom. And sure enough, only a couple of weeks after she was in, the first day, as soon as I took her to this daycare center, it was so funny. When I just took her to look at the center, I didn't know this is where I was going to put her. But I looked around and Alicia was over in the toys playing with other people. And I said, okay, this must be the place for her. And she loved it from day one. And she didn't have any, sometimes you might take your child to school or daycare and they don't want to go and they cry. Never had that problem at all. So obviously she felt comfortable and felt like this is where she needed to be. But it was like really, it was very interesting that she cried with everybody. She didn't cry with Miss Ford. Then after a period of time, it was almost like Miss Ford wanted my baby. She didn't want to go with you. She wants to stay with me. But I will always be indebted because Willisha was very, very happy with her.
Can you talk a little bit about, because you had two children, how was your experience with Romaine, your son, different? I know there's like 3 years apart, almost 3 years apart.
They're about 3 years apart. My son was born in November. So it's like once Willisha is a year older, then a month later is Romaine's birthday. So they're about 3 years apart. The main difference that I can recall is when Willisha was very busy. She was a very active child. When she was in the womb, she was so busy and so she moved so much. At that time, I did not want to know the sex of my child, but I just knew she was going to be a boy. My maiden name was Willis, and in the military, people call you by your last name. So my name was Willis to everybody, and I loved it. So I said, well, I'm going to name my baby Willis. I thought it was going to be a boy. So I kept thinking, well, if it's a girl, what am I going to name her? And I never could come up with a girl's name. So the night before she was born, it just hit me. I just added an HA to Willis. And I said, if it's a girl, I'm going to name her Willisha. And then out pops Willisha. So she was still real busy, real active, as a little girl, as a toddler and all that. And I would think, oh, no way could a boy be more active than this little girl right here. And to this day, she's still very active. She's that mom that she could coach any sport, and she has coached and won championships for basketball, volleyball. She's coached baseball. She's coached every sport, and she's that mom that will get out and play basketball with her child and all of that. Still very active. But when Romaine was born, that active little girl had nothing on this active little boy.
Wow.
Romaine was busy. Some of the main differences, he was busier than Willisha. I had the pleasure of being home with Willisha for 6 months. I was only able to be home with Romaine for 4 months. I nursed Willisha for about 11 months. I nursed Romaine for about 9 months. Some of the differences that they talk about between girls and boys, I can remember Romaine biting me. I remember him being a lot more aggressive and a lot more physical. So his nursing was cut shorter than Willisha's. But other than that, I was prepared with him in terms of those negative comments that people would make, in terms of those comments about he's eating too much, because he ate a lot. He ate more than even Willisha. He nursed more than Willisha, but I was ready for that. I don't think that I was as active in La Leche League with him as I was with Willisha, but the nursing experience, I was just a lot more prepared with him. But the nursing experience was different, just by the nature of boy versus girl, if you will, or personality, if you will. but it was different. I was just a little better prepared when
Yeah.
he came.
And you were, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were already confident, and a second baby after having a successful nursing experience is different. It's
Exactly.
probably
Exactly.
my remember is that it just seemed like, oh, this is ordinary. This is how you have a baby. This is what you do. And can you talk a little bit about how you and Jerome handled weaning? Was that a big deal? Not a big deal? Were you, when you were done, or did you miss nursing, or how'd that go?
I think the weaning process was relatively easy for both children because both of them accepted formula pretty easy.
Mhm.
When I had, well, both of them, but I remember when I had Willisha, I was on WIC, and with WIC, you got these vouchers, and you could go to the store and you could purchase certain things like formula, cereal, cheese, milk, healthy kinds of things. And I remember really stocking up on formula. Now, what I was not successful at was pumping. When I would try to pump, I tried to pump manually, and after about 20 minutes, I might have maybe an ounce of formula in the bottle. I tried the more electric kind of pumps. I just couldn't get it to work. So I wasn't really good at pumping, but fortunately, the formula, I would feed, I would make the bottles and what have you for my children, and it wasn't like they didn't want it. When I was with them, I nursed. When I was not with them, they had their bottles of formula. So weaning them from the milk was not a problem. But I do remember they didn't take too well to not being, when I would have to say, no, and kind of not allow them to nurse. They didn't take to that too well. They liked the closeness and being with their mom. But one thing that I thought was not a good look is the baby walking over to the mom, taking the boob out, standing up next to you and nursing. I didn't think that was a good look. So when they kind of got, and then they would be real forceful about it, like, what do you mean I can't have this? And in front of company, in a restaurant, I'm like, this is not, I think it's about time for them to, be a little bit more.
Rein it in here.
Yeah. So I do remember, them kind of putting up a little bit of resistance when it came to an end, but nothing dramatic. They both accepted it okay.
Mhm.
If I recall. I don't remember anything negative.
Well,
And of course, Jerome was supportive as well.
yeah, I am really savoring this conversation because, I mean, the good thing is that I know you and I know the parties involved. But I remember you enjoying, not just wanting these babies, but enjoying this time that you had with them. And that nursing didn't seem weird. It just seemed like something that you were comfortable doing. And I was wondering, as a wise woman, looking back, and you don't have to share your age, but if you could, someone that might see this video or read about what you're saying, could you share two things? One, do you have any regrets? And then the second thing was, if you could advise someone who's thinking about, well, maybe I might nurse my baby. Maybe. What could you say that was like a little tip or pearl that?
And I've had that over the years.
Really? Okay, great.
I don't want to say that I have been, I guess I've been a mentor to a degree. I've talked to over the years many, 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 many young ladies that A, were nursing, B, thinking about nursing, C, said, no, I don't want to have anything to do with it. But it is one of the most beautiful, warm, wonderful feelings that you can experience with your child. Having that baby in your arms and nursing that baby is indescribable. But for some people, they want absolutely nothing to do with it. They can't relate to it at all. I kind of share the warmth, the closeness that you have with your child, and the thought of it even kind of comes across as gross
Yeah.
to many. And so it's not for everyone, but it is an experience. It is such a loving, warm experience. Now, one myth that there is that goes along with nursing, they say that a lot of childhood, I won't call them diseases or health issues you don't necessarily have with a nursing child. My children kept ear infections. And to the point where I knew what it was. I could be a doctor when it came, and I would want to just call the doctor and say, could you please call in some amoxicillin? My child has an ear infection, but you can't do that. You had to take them in, and they had to examine them, and then they would call in the prescription. And so the fact that I nursed them, they still had their share of colds. They still had their share of ear infection and other things that they say won't happen if you nurse your child. It was another common thing that they said, if you nurse your child, that they won't experience. I can't think what it is, but whatever it was, I remember both of my children experienced it. I don't know if it was the cold or whatever, but it's just a feeling that's indescribable. And what I also experienced is, I think based on society, those that do choose to nurse, they don't nurse for very long. They may do it for about 2, 3, 4 months at the most, and then they feel, and a lot of it has to do with the requirement of the work requirements. So what I would say to people is exactly what you're doing. Reach out to other women that have nursed, listen to them, use them as your sounding block, not that mother that never nursed for one day, because they're going to say things that A, might offend you, but B, you might listen to and take their word to heart. And I don't think that they mean any harm. Some of it could be a little bit of envy. I think a lot of people are envious at the relationship that you have with your child when you're nursing your child. And though they may not articulate that, the words that come from out of their mouth can make you feel that that's where they're coming from. But I always suggest the La Leche League. As soon as I know somebody is thinking about or is nursing, I always tell them about the La Leche League. I share with them because even to this day, I think that it's still predominantly white. So when I talk to other Black women that are nursing, I also let them know ahead of time that these women in the La Leche League, it may be all white, you may be the only Black person, it may be only a few of you, but they are invaluable in terms of the information they're going to provide you with, the experiences that you're going to have. They're experiencing some of the same type of things. So I would not change a thing. Everything was beautiful. Everything was almost perfect. I would advise them to talk to other nursing mothers. I strongly, to this day, I still support and advocate for the La Leche League. Haven't been in touch with them in a while, assuming that they still exist. I think I've even heard of other offshoots of the La Leche League that came to being. But those two things are very, very valuable. And I have to say that I'm also very happy for about those women that have come to me and asked my advice, and that I've tried to mentor through their nursing experience. But as I stated, it's usually not very long. It's usually 3-4 months at the most. Do you find that to be so, Jackie, in this day and age?
Yeah, less breastfeeding, more pumping, little or no support, and this notion of finding an elder or somebody that can just be reassuring or give you encouragement. It's like that person is not there. It's
Gotcha.
not like they haven't looked for them, they're not there. And I guess the second thing, as I'm listening to you talk and just kind of reminiscing, is that I really appreciate everything that you've shared, and appreciate that everybody kind of tailors it to their family and to their situation, and making it work for them. And I think that, and this is maybe not so much about breastfeeding, but how you parent, this notion that you have a thought in your mind. I think I'm going to try it. This is something that I value, and then I'm going to see how it goes. I think that we don't have to, but I'm inviting us to consider what works for you. You're the mom, you're taking time out of your life, your career, your relationship to have a baby. I know you enjoyed it. And so what might work for you may not work for somebody else. And that we're not about the business of shaming or blaming or you shoulda, coulda, woulda. But if there are women that think, I want to try that, or I want to see how that works, I think just knowing that you can tailor it to be the woman that you are and be the mom that you are, it's
And I think that there is a lot of shaming when it comes to women that do nurse.
Yeah.
I think people that don't nurse, they do try, a lot of times you do get some of that shaming feedback. Also, I want to say that people that I know, if I know someone who's pregnant, if I know them personally, I'll ask them, are you thinking about nursing? And when they share with me one way, whatever their thought process is, I in turn share with them that I nursed my children. If you have any questions, if you need support, I'm here for you. If you have any questions, these are, because I was in the workforce, I'm retired now, but I was in the workforce for quite a while. And I knew my share of pregnant girls that I worked with and what have you. And so I was in a position to talk to them about any questions that they had, any problems that they were having. So I was able to have some kind of influence in that regard, and always shared with them, it is a personal decision. And if you decide to do it, you will get, I can't stress enough, you will get negative feedback from people. And how are you going to deal with that? How you can deal with that, some suggestions, but don't let that decide for you. Don't allow people to tell you your baby's not getting enough. And you also have to be careful with your doctors, because that was the other shocker. I couldn't believe the number of male doctors that were not supportive of breastfeeding, and who too would make some of those exact same comments, those negative comments. So you have to be careful of those kinds of things. And that's the kind of information that I would also share with pregnant women, nursing women, people that were thinking about nursing.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. I'm grateful that my daughter and your daughter are still kicking it together. I have I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I think Willis had Chauncey, and oh, he couldn't have been more than a couple days old. And she called me. It was like the middle of the night, and she called me.
I told her to call you.
And
I said, call Jackie. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I meant to bring that up earlier in the conversation. I did. I meant to bring it up earlier in the conversation that even though it was such a good experience for me, by you being a nurse and by you writing a book and, the midwifery and all of that, it was not just that night, but often she would ask me a question and I would say, we need to call Jackie.
Yeah.
We need to ask Jackie.
Well,
I would refer to you a lot.
Yeah, but what I liked about that was that she called. Clearly, it had not been a good day. It's like it was a messed up day, And she was teary and I was teary and I wanted to, go by. I think I may have been in California or Oregon. She was in Georgia, wherever, the distance didn't matter. But hearing her voice and hearing the baby Chauncey in the background, I didn't get to meet him till later. And her hearing my voice, I just realized what a powerful connection that we all had. And I think I don't remember the specific thing. We should have her here because she could join the elder forces now too. Nurse the baby and being over 40. But it was something as simple as she was tired, and I think Chauncey was crying, and she was trying to get a shower, and and I said, well, just take his clothes off and take him in the shower with you. And I mean, your daughter is brilliant. I mean, she's a scientist. And she was like, what? Just get naked and take him in. Don't throw him on the floor. Get a towel, or if you want, I mean, are you feeling unsteady? And she said, oh, just both of us get naked and cry and just go take a shower. And I said, yeah, that would be fine. And we laughed at how simple it was. And I said, well, if you're done, you can call me back later. She says, no, I just feel bad. I forgot about the time difference. But it was something so simple. And that's the thing. Sometimes you just need to hear, it doesn't have to be Jesus and the angels talking to you. Just somebody to say, it's going to be okay.
Well, I was so close to the situation, but I never thought about that. I was like, oh, I don't know.
But what's funny is that there are things, and I can say this about you as well, there are things that my daughter could ask me, but knowing she can ask somebody else that's not her mother, not only does it build her own confidence, but it makes her think that, well, this isn't just my weird mother thing. I'm joining this mothering group, this group of people and sisters, and that that the world can be a welcoming and loving place. And I hadn't thought about that in a really long time. And I can't remember who I talked to, but they were saying, the first baby, you do everything a certain way, and you're very methodical. And I know your daughter's very methodical. I could say that Joyce taught me how to wash clothes. She never approved of the way. I think we were in the laundromat or someplace, and she said, Jackie, you have to take the socks and you have to put them. you have to fold them. You should do that right after you finish. But if you either buy all the same kind of socks or you take a safety pin, and I thought, this woman safety pins her socks. Well, at least I know where my socks are. But we laughed and it was funny. And like you said, sometimes it's not just the couples, but just the ordinary things of life that are like deal breakers for you. the first baby, you would never think, oh, I could never take the baby in the shower with me. Well, by the second baby or the third baby or the fourth baby, you lucky you wash them all at all. You just hold
Right.
them down, they'll be all right. And they fit your lifestyle. You don't fit their lifestyle.
The first baby, you don't put them in the bed with you. You might, you might crush them, you might smother them, or they may stay in the bed with you forever. The second baby is like, you snatch that baby, you stick them over there between the two of us, and I get a good night's sleep.
Yeah, but the fact that we both, I know it's important to us that if our daughters had decided not to nurse, we wouldn't love them any less. But the fact that being in this environment, even though I can't remember, did she go to Arizona to school? I mean,
She was in a dual university, dual degree program. So the first 3 years she went to Fort Valley State University, which is an HBCU, and she majored in chemistry.
okay.
And it was a dual university. The second 2 years she went to University of Oklahoma, and she majored in
Oklahoma,
geography.
Arizona, same thing.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I bring that up is this notion that our mothers or our friends are going to be down the road is probably not true. And that
Right.
we need to, whether it's Zoom or email or whatever, our social networks can work for us in ways that we didn't envision 50 years ago, 40 years ago. But these young women, the fact that we both had daughters that were not just, they had welcome babies, they look forward to having their mothering experience, and that they not just were able to nurse their babies, but they did it confidently and maybe did it very differently than we did. I think that that's like really a cool thing. So whether we go from generation to generation to generation, even if we skip 1 or 2 generations, we can recapture that. So I thank you for that. And I cannot believe our girls are in their 40s. I cannot believe it. And I
cannot believe it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And
their friendship is so beautiful. It is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks a lot, and I appreciate it. And if you think of anything else, we'll catch you again. But I've enjoyed this so much.
I have too. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you for the opportunity. And it was just so wonderful being able to kind of reminisce and go back 40 years. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So I'm honored. And like I said, this is the one of what I hope will be more Wise Women series where we talk about breastfeeding. But I am honored that during Black Breastfeeding Week, we have so many wise women elders that are still on the planet and encouraging one another. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.